back to 2022 when the markets were down, do you think if you had needed money out of your portfolio at that time, you would have been able to take what you need and spend it?
I mean, I was full-time working, right? I mean, I had money coming in, et cetera. So it didn't bother me. I kind of knew that, this is what happens periodically, and ended up actually buying a little bit more of a couple of things that I wanted to buy because it was low.
Right.
So I didn't panic. I was able to kind of ride through that.
But hypothetically, do you think you would have been able to take out what you would have needed to fund your lifestyle?
I think I would have, but I would have been much more careful, a little bit more jittery about it, and not sort of that breathing easy that, okay, I've got this coming in no matter what my expenses are covered.
So bottom line on this, I actually think Hey everyone, I'm Jean Chatzky. Thank you so much for joining me today on HerMoney. You know I love answering your money questions, and today I got another Ask Me Anything episode for all of you. These conversations are always a favorite because I get to talk to you. I get to see you. In this episode, I'm chatting with Liz, a longtime listener who's just a year or so away from retirement. She's asking some really smart questions about building income for her future, like, should I go with an annuity? What about a tips ladder? How do I make sure my retirement money keeps up with inflation? If you're thinking about your own retirement or you just want to feel more confident about what's ahead, this one is for you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an episode of HerMoney. And today, Liz is making my day. She is joining us. Where are you, Liz? Where in the country?
Outside of Washington, D.C.
Your question is sort of in and around retirement. Tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get to the details of the question.
All right. Well, first of all, I'm a huge fan, Jean, of you. And now,
thank you.
For years, actually. And now I'm part of InvestFix, which I love. So some of it just spawns a lot of these types of questions. But I live, outside of Washington, D.C. I'm close to retirement, probably 12 to 18 months. And I don't have a pension, but I do have Social Security. And I do have other investments. I have a Roth IRA and a regular IRA. But I want some more security. Like, I want to know I definitely have a certain amount of money. So the annuities were interesting to me. But for me, you have to chunk out some cash. I definitely wanted the CPI escalators, and that wasn't cheap. And then, do I really need one? My financial planners say, Beth, you probably don't need one, but if you want it for peace of mind, it would be good, right? So then I kind of moved over to this idea of a tips ladder. Mm-hmm. Because with a tips ladder, I believe I would do it in my IRA, my regular IRA. I wouldn't have to chunk over a bunch of cash. It does escalate with inflation. It has inflation built into it. And I believe it's somewhat liquid depending upon when you decide to sell it. So it's not like locking up for me a chunk of money. I'm looking to keep my cash to do some kind of Roth conversions, or I have to take my RMDs at 70. So I'm looking at this as an option and would just love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think, boy, it's a big, here's what we know. And what Liz is talking about really is making sure that she's got enough of an income stream in retirement while also making sure that she's got enough money to keep pace with inflation and enough to invest so that it can continue to grow, which really handles some of that inflation protection for us. The idea of knowing that you've got enough money coming in to cover your fixed expenses is really appealing to me. There are, as you said, there are a lot of different ways to do it. You can do it with an annuity. You can do it with tips. You can do it by following the 4% rule or a version of the 4% rule where you invest your money and then pull out no more than 4% of the principal on an annual basis and use that to fund your lifestyle. The thing that I've found really interesting, and I've been digging into the research on how people spend in retirement, is that when we get our money in some sort of a paycheck, when it just shows up every single month, we feel a lot more comfortable spending it than if it's an asset that we then have to pull out of an account to spend. I think that we just have gotten so inundated with these messages of accumulate, 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 and don't spend your principal. No matter what you do, don't spend your principal, that it gets difficult to dig in. And I wonder how you think you would fare. I mean, think back to 2022 when the markets were down. How did you how did you cope with that? Do you think if you had needed money out of your portfolio at that time, you would have been able to take what you need and spend it?
Yeah, I mean, but at the time, I mean, I was full-time working, right? I mean, I had money coming in, et cetera. So it didn't bother me. I kind of knew that this is what happens periodically, and ended up actually buying a little bit more, a couple of things that I wanted to buy because it was low.
Right.
So I didn't panic. I was able to kind of ride through that. I suppose at the time I was working, so there was no need to go into the portfolio for any monies. I was fine working and accumulating cash then.
But hypothetically, if you
I
hadn't
get you.
been working,
Right.
how do you think
Yeah.
you would have reacted? Do you think you would have been able to take out what you would have needed to fund your lifestyle?
I think I would have, but I would have been less, I would have been much more careful, a little bit more jittery about it, and not sort of that breathing easy that, okay, I've got this coming in, no matter what my expenses are covered. So I would have a little bit of that.
If you were sort of weighing getting a good enough return to meet your needs, but knowing that the compromise for that is that if the equity markets go crazy, you're not going to capture that upside. Would that make you feel, from kind of a FOMO perspective, would it make you feel awful, or would you be able to handle it? If you had locked up your money
Yeah.
to try to earn a steady income,
Hmm.
and that money was then not invested in
Right.
equities, even if you had other money invested in equities, would it make you regretful?
Yeah. It's hard to know. It's hard to predict, right? But I think there is a feeling of slight vulnerability as you move to retirement, right? You don't have all the money coming in like you did. I think I might be okay with it. I'm almost better knowing I definitely am covered. And I would still have market exposure in other assets. So I
Right.
don't feel like I'd miss out. But yeah, I think I could. I think the trade-off would be enough to keep me calm.
So, I mean, bottom line on this, I actually think whether you do it with tips or whether you do it with annuities, figuring out what your base level of fixed costs are going to be, and then using an income tool to cover the gap between what you're expecting from Social Security and what you need to cover those necessities is a smart move. What a lot of people don't realize about annuities is that you can also ladder those. So when you buy an immediate annuity, a single premium immediate annuity, or what some people call a SPIA, you take a chunk of money and you convert it to a paycheck. And that paycheck shows up for the rest of your life. And there are permutations. Sometimes they have an inflation rider, sometimes they don't. Sometimes there are return of premium guarantees, sometimes they're not. All these bells and whistles that you might add on, you're definitely going to pay for. The logic of keeping money in the markets is that's the money that will help you keep up with inflation. And you
Right.
don't necessarily need to do it with the annuity itself. Laddering the annuity, though, does provide a layer of inflation protection, because when you ladder an annuity, you just cover what you need right now and then add on chunks as you need additional income. And the
Right.
benefit to doing it that way is that an annuity payout is based on a couple of things. It's based on interest rates, it's also based on your age. And so the older you get, the more you're going to get from annuitizing the same amount of money. So
Mm.
by waiting and doing it in chunks, that can be beneficial. And so I would, and I think you're working with an advisor, right?
And
Yeah, so I would have your advisor run scenarios on both and then just compare the costs and compare the returns. I think both are a fine way to go.
would tips be more liquid, in your opinion? Depending upon when you sell them, I suppose.
Tips would be more liquid. With an annuity, that money is basically one and done, right? So you're going into it with a sense that there's no liquidity,
Right,
right? And that is not okay for some people. Some
right.
people just do not like, that's been the thing that has held the annuity industry back, that it's in some cases pure insurance, and once you use the money to buy that insurance policy, you'll get the income, but you won't get the chunk of money back. The other thing that you may want to do, and I'm not sure, I think that you may have looked into this, is look into a QLAC, which provides additional income down the road. A QLAC is a qualified longevity annuity contract. So it's basically a deferred annuity. You use a chunk of money now to buy income down the road, like when you're 80 or even 85. And the thinking with that is by giving the money a considerable number of years to grow from within the product, you buy more income for less. The nice thing about a QLAC is that you can use up to $200,000 from within an IRA
Right.
to buy this longevity annuity. And once you do that, that money no longer gets factored into your required minimum distribution. So it can help you save there. But you need to be of the mindset that you're going to live that long and that you're going to want an additional chunk of money at that point, probably for long-term care or health care or
Right.
whatever you might need.
Right. And that's a great idea. I'll definitely look more into that for sure.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to the return plus the liquidity and whether you feel okay locking up a chunk of money. And I should point out, it's not an either or.
Hmm.
You could do both. You could build a smaller tips ladder and annuitize a smaller amount and know that you are covering your bases that
Great
way.
idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, kind of split the baby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's a great idea. Okay. Okay. Very
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Sure. Any other questions while you've got me here?
I think that's it. I mean, long-term care is a concern because I don't have a long-term care insurance policy. So that is a great idea about potentially using that QLAC. I do like that idea a lot.
Are you single
Yes.
or
I'm
and
single.
kids or no
No,
kids?
no kids. I have nieces and nephews in the area, but no children.
So a long-term care policy is really important, or something doesn't have to be a long-term care policy. It can be a provision that provides funds for long-term care if you need it. A QLAC can definitely help with that. You may, based on what I hear you saying about liquidity and not wanting to lock up a big chunk of money, you may want to look at a hybrid long-term care
Mm.
policy
Mhm.
rather than straight long-term care, knowing that the assets will be there for your beneficiaries if you don't need the long-term care yourself. And we're starting to see the rollout of more hybrid policies that couple long-term care with an annuity. So that if you need long-term care, the money that your annuity is spilling out each month gets bumped up. So
Okay.
you may want to talk to your life insurance agent about that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, my mom's 93, so I think
So you've got longevity. You definitely do.
it's in there. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's a definite factor. So okay,
All right. Well,
I
good
think
luck with it. Let us know what you decide.
okay,
And
awesome.
I will see you on the airwaves Monday night in
Yes,
Investing Fix.
indeed, indeed. Thank you so much, Jean.
Thanks.